guys, and welcome to the show. And as you can see, I'm back in my New York apartment. I have missed this place tremendously. I'm in the war room, as you guys have named it very fittingly, obviously. Anyway, first of all, I just want to say a massive Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all had a fantastic time last night. You got home safe and all the rest of it. So I want to wish everybody a prosperous and happy 2016. I hope it brings much happiness and prosperity to everybody out there watching this right now. So I thought I'd start off with a watch duel. Kind of had to be done. Now I've got the Navitimer, and I'll do a quick wristwatch check. Of course, I've got the Speedy on one and the Navitimer on the other. Now it just had to happen, didn't it, guys? It just had to happen. I've got two icons here, but which will come out on top? It's going to be a really interesting duel, so stay tuned for that. We'll get into it in just a moment, but before I get into that, of course, I've got a lot of footage from London. I'm going to have a lot of fun editing that and putting it together, so stay tuned for that as well. But I thought I'd start off with a watch video for the new year, as let's be honest, guys, that's what most of you are tuned in to see, and what better than two absolute icons like these two. And I gotta say, it's a tough call, because yeah, I don't think I could ever choose between them. I'm besotted with both of them. I absolutely adore both of them, and it's a bit of a dream come true to own both of them at the same time, so I'm really happy about that. So without further ado, let's dive in and have a closer look at just how these two stack up against each other. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And today we're finally going to be doing the duel between these two classic icons of horology. Now, I must just stress, well, actually, before I get into this, I should just point out, I do apologize about my voice. I've got a nasty cold developing, and so if I sound a little bit lower than usual, it's just because of that. But in the spirit of the channel, I shall persevere onwards and upwards as always. So before we get into this, I should just point out a little bit about the rating system. Also, I want to address a point that somebody very cleverly, a very excellent question I had last time regarding the scoring system. Now, there are 10 categories, as you can see here, and then a total final score. Each category is rated out of 10, and as I go through them, I will kind of give you a brief definition of each category, so don't worry about it as of yet. Most of them, such as value, quality, brand prestige and heritage, they're pretty self-explanatory, but you know, there is a slight difference between, let's say, design and style, but we'll address that as we come to them. Now, the other thing I wanted to address is these two watches are, of course, luxury timepieces. And if the final score is only comparable in the duel to another luxury timepiece, so for example, if we were to compare the Speedmaster to a Rolex Submariner, for example, the final scores would be compatible because they are within the same genre and the same range. However, if, for example, if I was to take my beloved Seiko Flighty, the Flightmaster here, the SNA 411, this is an entry-level quartz, just below $200. The mark it would get in a duel would not be comparable to the mark given here. The grades, the final scores, are only comparable to watches within their ranges, and there are 3 ranges I deal with. So we got the entry level, we got the mid-range, and of course we have the luxury level watches. If we were to compare an entry level piece, for example, to its luxury equivalent, actually these two are very well matched, a separate duel with a separate score would have to be made. So just to get that out of the way, I hope you understand it. It just makes it a little bit more easier to get an idea of how the scores work. Anyway, babbling on too much about the scores, let's get on with this particular duel. So first of all, we have, of course, the value, and let's move down. Now, the value of the Speedmaster to me gets a lead here. The Speedmaster, you can buy them from all different ranges. You can start with the Speedy Reduced. You can get them for under a couple of grand, between $1 and $2 grand depending on condition, and sky's the limit. You could go all the way to super high-end ones made out of precious metals. So the value is much stronger here. Also, they do hold their value pretty well. It's a very iconic, you know, because of its NASA and moon connotations, and because of the prestige and iconic nature of the Speedmaster line, they do hold their value very, very well. So the Speedmaster obviously takes the lead here. We're comparing it to the Navitimer. The Navitimer gets us a respectable 8, does hold its value well. There is a lot in the name. The Navitimer is an icon, of course, and actually predates the Speedy, but they start for a lot more, and there really isn't any kind of budget Navitimers, so to speak. I'm not saying that there are budget Speedmasters, but very unlikely that you would pick up a Navitimer for less than, you know, 3-4 grand for a good one. And again, sky's the limit. They go all the way to super blingy precious metal ones as well. So a respectable 8. It does hold its value, of course. But it is more expensive. The Speedmaster does have that advantage of being, you know, quite an affordable way to get your first step into a luxury timepiece. So, you know, a really strong 9 there, and a respectable 8 for the Navitimer. Okay, moving on. Now the design. Now this basically, the design, to define the design in comparison to the style, design is how well it's designed to do its job. Now we get a really respectable 9 here for the Navitimer. It came out in 1952, I believe. Well, it's debatable when it exactly came out, but they introduced this slide rule. It's very much an instrument watch, a computer for the, well, the word computers changed somewhat, but it was very much an instrument for pilots to use for conversions and calculations. And its design is you know, without a doubt, extremely iconic, extremely influential. There are many homages and odes to the Navitimer. However, I feel that the design of the Speedmaster just nips ahead here, basically, because it's a more versatile in design. You can get the Speedmaster for everybody. And one thing I must point out, that you know, we're comparing the Speedmaster, the whole range here, to the whole range of the Navitimer. I'm just using these 2 examples because these are the ones I currently own. Let's just get that clear, that these are the 2 that I particularly own. So take that into consideration. Really, there are so many different versions of the Speedmaster. There's a Speedmaster for everybody. There's different colors, there's special editions, there's different sizes. The Navitimer, of course, they have a really wide range, but they tend to be, you know, 41, almost 42 millimeters and upwards. They're much bigger. The design doesn't tend to vary as much as the Speedmaster. The design of the Speedmaster definitely appeals to more people. I very rarely hear anybody saying, oh, I don't like the design of the Speedmaster. But, you know, you do find people that don't like the busy nature of the Breitling. It's very much an acquired taste. Okay, so moving on, movement. Now again here, the Speedy takes the lead with that iconic, legendary 3-2-1 movement that is widely regarded as one of the best movements ever made. This one, of course, has the 1-8-6-1, which of course is very respectable. Not as highly regarded as the 3-2-1, obviously, but manual wind. It's a movement that is really reliable, really trusted, really respected. Even the 1-8-6-1. I've got to say that I've never had any issues with any Speedmaster I've owned, and this is I think the 5th or 4th one, I lose count, but I've never had any issues. And the 3-2-1 is just something that is held in very high esteem by watch connoisseurs and newcomers like me alike. So it's 10 out of 10. There's no mistaking it. On the Navitimer front, we get a respectable 9 here. There are, of course, in-house Navitimers with the special edition that came out, I think, on its 60th year. I think I might be wrong about that. The 01, the Breitling's own in-house caliber, but largely based on the Valjoux movements. There's nothing wrong with that. They are highly regarded as some of the best chronograph movements. They always use COSC certified chronometers, and you know, the quality, the reliability is there. However, I've had some issues with some Breitlings in the past. Not the Navitimer, I have to say. It's not as well respected as the Speedmaster in terms of its movement. We'll be honest, but really definitely comes in close. Just hasn't got that prestige that of the 3-2-1. Moving on. Right, brand, prestige and heritage. So this is the the prestige, the history, the achievements of the brands. And again, another 10 for the Speedmaster. There's no doubt about that. The Speedmaster, with its huge association with space and NASA and Man on the Moon and all the rest of it, there's no doubt that the Speedmaster is probably one of the most prestigious, iconic watches of all time. And because of that, it gets a 10 out of 10. It's a true icon. It's a watch to this day that is worn by astronauts. And there's no mistaking it. It has a very long and well-established history with space exploration, and some true legendary astronauts have worn Speedmasters. So it's undeniable. I mean, I don't even have to explain it to you guys. You know the heritage, you know the history. And of course, if we forget it's a Speedmaster for a moment and we just talk about Omega as a brand, there's no doubt that Omega are one of the most iconic watch brands of all time. Pretty much everybody's heard of Rolex. A lot of people have heard of Omega. It's just one of those top brands that everybody's heard of. It's not as loud and brash as its biggest rival Rolex. It's certainly maybe a more kind of understated alternative. It's a great brand, and its history and prestige and innovations just are endless. I mean, I don't know where to start, so let's just give it 10 out of 10 and call it how it really is. I'm not saying it's the most prestigious brand in the world, but you've got to respect Omega. Even if you don't like any Omegas, you've got to respect Omega, and so it gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Breitling, on the other hand, the Navitimer line, would have got a 10 out of 10, but in comparison to Omega's space achievements, space exploration achievements, I should say, it falls a little short. Now, the Navitimer has, of course, also been into space. There's the cosmonaut version. It actually predates the Speedmaster, so it has a strong heritage of its own. It predates the Submariner as well. I mean, early 50s, whereas the Speedmaster was late 50s. So it is a true icon, and there's nothing else like it. It's definitely an original like the Speedmaster. So, a really respectable 9, but in the whole scale of things, Omega steals the show here. Okay, moving down to quality. This is the first time the Navitimer nips ahead. For me, I think the Navitimer, and my experience with Breitling in general, the finishing and the quality is just that little bit better. I can't really put my finger on it. And I've had some issues with the Breitlings, but it was usually only the movements. The casing and polishing and actual construction of the Breitling is always flawless. I have nothing negative to say there, and I can only give the actual quality of the watch 10 out of 10. They just do everything exquisitely well. The craftsmanship, it's the attention to detail, it's just beautifully done. It's absolute perfection. When you handle a Navitimer, you really do feel the quality there, and I think the Omega gets a strong 9. It's not quite there in the quality in terms of the actual finishing. I've had Omegas where new Omegas as well, where there were little kind of not imperfections, but I just feel it wasn't 100%. It was like almost there. It was 99 point something, almost there. The quality is extremely high and respectable, but I think at the end of the day, I really do think the Breitlings are just a little bit better in quality. You get this incredible polishing of the case, the actual the box and the manual, and everything is just, no expenses ever spared with the Breitling. Whereas Omega, you of course you get this one came with a beautiful special edition case. This is the first Omega in space, the numbered edition. I just feel the Breitling nips ahead. I can't really explain why. There isn't a very specific reason. I just got to be honest, so there we go. Right, moving on, style. Now, this is quite an interesting one. In my opinion, the Speedmaster, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. I love these two watches, but I only gave the Navitimer an 8 here because, to be honest, if we think about it objectively, A lot of people don't like the Navitimer. It's too busy for them. Some people love them. They absolutely adore them. I definitely adore it. I can't deny it. But it's an acquired taste. It's very busy, and stylistically, not everybody likes a Navitimer. Whereas I've seldom heard anyone speak negatively about a Speedmaster. I think the Speedmaster range, there's certainly more Speedmasters. There's a Speedmaster for everybody. There's a wider variety of colors. There's the newer models with the bicompacts. There's just stylistically, aesthetically appeals to more people. It's a little bit, it ages better. I mean, I think because of its more simplistic, understated nature, it appeals, it's a little bit more sophisticated. The Breitling does come across a little bit blingy and big, you know, also the size of the Breitlings. This is the smallest Breitling they do, apart from a few vintage models, but they're a little bit louder, they're a little bit more, I guess you could say blingy, but it's just stylistically, the Speedmaster has the edge there. I mean, if we look at the entire range, there really is a Speedmaster for everybody. So a really solid 10 out of 10 for the Speedy, and a solid respectable 8 for the Navitimer. Okay, moving on. Versatility. Now, again, the same scores. This basically is because if we look at the Navitimer, right, it's a very busy design. It's got this white and you know, if you get the black one, it's black and white. It's quite loud. It doesn't always go with every strap. The bracelets are very polished. It's not the most versatile piece. You know, it doesn't have the versatility of the Speedy. If we look at the Speedy, there is no NATO strap. You could put this on a bright pink fluorescent NATO strap and it would still look absolute pure class. You know, that's the Speedy for you. It just is such a versatile piece. It looks very dressy on a leather strap. I mean, on a leather strap, it's almost a dress watch. You put it on a mesh Milanese bracelet, then it looks more sporty, and you know, it's just so versatile. There isn't any strap, no bracelet that doesn't work with this watch. The same cannot be said about the Navitimer. The Navitimer, it clashes, you know. It's a very bold design. It's a little bit more kind of, I wouldn't say garish, but it's a definitely louder design. And you know, you need a kind of loud NATO strap, or you could dress it down, but you know, it's not going to go with every color. It's not going to go with every strap. It's not going to go with every bracelet, you know. So a solid, respectable 8, but I've got to say 10 out of 10 for the Speedy. There's just nothing it will not work with. Moving on, performance. Again, so the Navi gets a solid 8 out of 10 here. This is, of course, chronometer certified as COSC certified. Performs impeccably well. However, it's a little bit more sensitive. Power reserve is not up there. It's a little bit more fragile. Now, this particular movement, the Valjoux in here, the modified Valjoux in this particular piece, is very reliable, and it's extremely accurate. It's certainly one of the better Valjouxs, but at the end of the day, the fact that the Speedmasters have gone into space and have passed all the stringent tests and the reliability, even the 1861 in here is still something to behold. The legendary 321 obviously is even greater, and that was certified for space travel, and that says a hell of a lot for the watch. Performance, we've got to give it to the Speedmaster. Its history, again, it's funny, its history just keeps popping up, and it's inescapable because it's an achievement, and that achievement wouldn't have happened had it not been such an incredible watch, and the marks reflect that. Another factor to consider in its performance is the loom. The loom on the Speedmaster is always much better than Navitimer's. The Navitimer has quite a disappointing loom, considering it's a tool watch, and to be honest, I would imagine in a cockpit, you know, you'd want to have a better loom, wouldn't you? But let's just quickly have a look at the loom shot. And as you can see, there's no doubt that the Speedmaster has the better loom of the two. Now, I'm not saying that the Breitling isn't good, but it's very small. It's of course, that's not the same for all Breitling Navitimers, but generally so, the loom layout is quite consistent within the range. There are exceptions, of course, but pretty much most Navitimers have similar loom to this one. I would like to point out that it seems a little harsh on the old Navi here, but the Navi still gets a solid 8. There are a little, the date changes a little bit annoying. You don't have to worry about that with the Navitimer, with the Speedy, but it's not the best performing watch of all time. Moving on, durability. Now here, it's quite a surprising result. I'll just move that up a bit. The Navitimer really falls short here. I got to be honest, every time I wash my hands or go no water, I'm a little bit scared wearing this because it has the water resistance of a Haute Horology vintage dress watch. It's almost non-existent. And it's a bit surprising. It's a bit of it's Achilles heel, really. Had this had a higher water resistance, that would have been great. I mean, just to pull in my old friend, the Flightmaster here, this has 200 meters water resistance, screw down crown, screw down pushers. This you can go diving in and only costs $200. It's just a shame this doesn't have that water resistance. Now, of course, the Speedy doesn't have that high water resistance either, but it's slightly improved, and you can get versions like the second version of the reduced with the Sapphire had 100 meters water protection, and that to me, I felt safe wearing it on a rainy day. I wouldn't go swimming with it, obviously, but I didn't have to worry about it. And I probably wouldn't wear this washing up, or I certainly wouldn't wear it in the swimming pool. I think it's really worthy to point out that durability wise, they're both quite fragile. They're not divers, they're not hard as nails. The Speedmaster obviously went to space, but to be honest, I wouldn't wear this watch walking my dog, so which is a lot more demanding than space exploration. And a Navi, I certainly wouldn't. It's as almost as sensitive as a dress watch. It's a bit of a shame. So hence the 7, and it's the lowest score here, really. But still a respectable 8 for the Speedy. It is They are both reliable, but you wouldn't see James Bond wearing a Speedmaster or a Navitimer. It just actually, I think Bond did wear a Breitling at some stage, but it's not that rough and tumble type watch. To be honest, they're almost dress watches now, really, in actuality. And I know they're sports watches, but I'm just saying, they're so classic, they're almost like dress watches. So moving on, the final category, which is X Factor. Now, I got to give it to the Navitimer. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but there is something special about it, and you can't really grasp it or understand that X Factor. I mean, the X Factor, maybe I should explain clearly it's the same as in music or judging anything. It's that inexplicable special something that makes it extraordinary or better than the rest of the crowd. And the Navitimer has it in abundance. I cannot explain it. It has a look, it has a feeling, and I always suspected as much. When the first time I ever tried one on, I was living in Barcelona, and I kind of started my infatuation, and I just couldn't shake it. And it's not until you actually own one and then you wear it and you enjoy it that you begin to realize that it's got this special magic to it that you can't put your finger on it, and the X Factor is very, very strong. It's an iconic watch. It's in many ways it's the most iconic watch because it predates the Subby and the Speedy. I mean, I've got to be careful what I say here because the watch fraternity will argue with me, but let's be honest. It is a true icon. Its enduring legacy, it has remained pretty much unchanged. The Speedmaster there's so many different versions, different colors, different coordinations. There's very futuristic looking ones. There's the X33 that is a kind of Annie-Digi. I mean, there's an Annie-Digi Breitling as well, but generally the Breitling has stayed true to its original roots more than any other watch, definitely, in my opinion anyway. And it's that long enduring X Factor, that special something that just sets it apart from the rest of the crowd. Now the Speedy has it in buckets too, a solid 9, a respectable 9. I mean, these are really high marks. I mean, what do you expect? These are two icons, but the X Factor is very strong here. There's a romantic connotation with space travel. There's a understated elegance. There's a there's a kind of charm to it, especially that I think this particular one, the first Omega in space, it's a little bit more unique than the Man on the Moon. It's definitely got the X factor. It's such an enduring design. Even in its many different forms, it's still a Speedmaster. You'd never mistake a Speedmaster for anything else, and you never. And the same could be said about Navitimer. I mean, they're two absolute icons, and they have that special X factor in buckets. They really do. So I think a respectable 9, just a little bit less. I can't really explain it. I guess, well, that's why it's the X factor, but there is just something a little bit more extra special about the Navitimer. It was the first icon of the two, so I got to give it to the Navitimer. So, what are the final scores? Drum roll, please. Let's have a look at the final scores. And quite surprising, I thought it would be a bit more closer, but the actual Speedmaster steams ahead into the mid-90s at 94, closely followed by the Breitling Navitimer in the mid-80s at 86, a very respectable mark. And there's no doubt about it that the Speedy is the king here. Not by a long way, but definitely the more dominant of the two, mainly due to its achievements, we've got to be honest. And also, I think the slightly more simplistic nature of its design just makes it that much more elegant and enduring and more of a all-round winner. So, and the scores reflect that, so I'm very happy with that. Anyway guys, final scores are in. Let's take it back to the studio. Okay, welcome back guys. Now, I hope you enjoyed it. Quite a surprising result. Personally, I really couldn't choose between them, and I think that's why I have to own both. But there are guys out there, and I do appreciate some of you out there really like one and loathe the other, or the other way around. You know, they are both kind of, I mean, probably I would say the Speedmaster has that more kind of mass appeal, and certainly is the more versatile of the two. The Navitimer is a little bit of more of an acquired taste. Two absolute icons, and it really is a dream come true to own both of them. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave your comments down below. I'd really like to hear what versions of the Speedmaster and what versions of the Navitimer are your favorites. It's been a long journey. I've gone through several Speedmasters, several Breitlings to really come to the conclusion that these are the two for me. Probably some of you guys are in that same journey. I'd love to hear about it. Please tell me down in the comments. I'm always love to hear what you guys have to say. Anyway guys, I'm going to leave it there before I go on a long ramble. Difficult not to talk about these two great pieces, but anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful, and I'll definitely catch you in the next one. Okay guys, ciao.